Tracks like Laguna Seca and Sonoma have become more famous over in California, but one well-kept secret over the years has been Willow Springs. It's fast and it's old school, and it's our venue for tonight as we get ready for the PCA Sim Racing Series 12 Sport Class. You'll see it all live here on RaceSpotTV. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is Ewan O'Leary, as well as behind the scenes is our director, Hugo Louise. Also, we want to take a moment for a reminder that Charlie Mobile is sponsoring the Series 12 Clean Driver Award. Charlie Mobile is providing the winner with an Apple iPhone 16 and a year of cell service. A big thank you to Charlie Mobile for sponsoring Series 12. Ewan, from what we've seen so far in the two races we have covered, it looks like it's really tricky to try and make passes around here, but maybe it relies more on mistakes from the other drivers.
Absolutely, and it doesn't mean we can't have interesting races by any means either. These are the clean driver standings. It's not a circuit where these will be racked up particularly, to be honest. As long as you're staying on the road, then you should be able to keep those incidents low. Interesting to note that the top two in that standing there, top three indeed, and top four, wow, are all up there at the moment in terms of the clean driver standings, and they're all up there in terms of points as well. Maybe that's a thing that they're going hand in hand with. So, yeah, interesting to see. And there are the actual points with Aaron Nations leading the way.
Indeed, Nations with a single win so far this season, but Eskridge and Foley still lack a victory. Rex Jarawala did manage to snag one at Summit Point, and then you have to go down to Marcel Yunus for last round at Mount Panorama, helping jump him a little bit farther up the order. They get one drop week in this one, and unfortunately for Aaron Nations, his drop week is one of the lowest amongst the top five. In fact, it is the lowest amongst the top five. Only 22 points sitting in his back pocket, so he can't afford to have another bad race. He's really got to try and make it a good one to set himself up well for the finale in a couple weeks' time. As for the track itself, in case they didn't see the earlier races, Ewan, can you introduce us?
Yeah, very difficult circuit, and more perhaps than it looks here. It's pretty old school, not much in terms of the way of runoff, but as you can see there, the thing that's not deceiving about the track map is just how flowing it is. There's not really any big stops here. The run down towards turn one is a fairly long one, but it's not a big braking zone. The tyres will really be screaming through turn two, and then you get to 3 and 4, where it is the sort of slowest speed sections, but it's by no means big stopping round there. Big downhill on the way towards turn 5, and then the high-speed section right the way through turn 6, turn 7, which is not a corner, to be honest, and then turn 8 and 9, which certainly is all one long corner, to be honest. That's the one that really interests me. We see a lot of action through there. Even in the Pro Series, we saw a lot of people running slightly wide and ending up in the miles and miles of dirt, or whatever you call it, on the sand, maybe, on the outside of the sweeper at the very final corner.
Yeah, there might not be much to hit, but if anything, almost makes it worse in some cases because, like you said, you go off for a long ways on some of these corners. Meanwhile, they have qualifying underway. Now, you get a maximum of 3 laps that can count here in qualifying. You get 10 minutes to try and do it. It's not a long lap around here. In fact, it's quite short. It's about 1:15 for the quickest drivers. So you should be able to get those in easily within the time. But you talked about not worrying about incident points too much. Well, if you do go beyond that track limit, it does discount the lap here, and I have to imagine they're going to be pushing hard, as we can see from Abu Haka coming up the hill.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, to be fair, we've got plenty of those circuits on this calendar where if you're staying on the road, then you are generally, even when you're pushing hard, you're not going to be running the risk of off-tracks like you would at a Spa, for example. However, there is Monza coming up next week. Now, that is a circuit where you can just get off-tracks by pushing a little bit too hard. And also staying on the road. You don't necessarily need to have a proper big incident to actually get incident points around there. So that'll be something to watch over the next couple of weeks. This is Nathan Abu Haka making his way through the final corner. Needs a good result here, and at the moment his qualifying is not reflecting that particularly. He's 5th place in the points as things stand. He's not been knocked down to 15th now in the current standings, but he will jump up by the looks of things. Will he? I don't know. Aaron Nations went to the top briefly. Now Mark Foley is leading the way, just 100th of a second between those two.
With a short lap time, you kind of expect it to be close qualifying times out there. Nathan jumped up to 5th briefly, but times seem to be tumbling quite a bit. It's rather cool out on the track at 68 Fahrenheit, with this being early in the morning, about 9 a.m. Here, virtual standard time. So I wonder if you need to really get those tires heated up. Air Nation's apparently not getting enough heat in them.
Yes, or indeed. Oh dear, and that's another problem we'll talk about as well. He's nearly stuck here. Thankfully, he can use gravity to just roll himself back down again, but it's a bit ungainly, and he's back on again. That'll be the end of his session in that case. So Mark Foley should be okay to finish on top, but Charlie Ferrer is going pretty well here. I've got to say, on this lap time, not sure Mark Foley is going to be able to respond if this is an improvement from the driver of the 28.
I'm not showing a vast improvement right now, but you never know. Sometimes our timing and scoring sectors can be just a bit off, so he'll cross the line. And does he go quicker than a 15.9? No, it's a 16.8, and he actually gets bumped down to 4th as Jarrell Walla now moves into the inside of the second row.
And everyone goes a bit further behind because Mark Foley has just put this out of sight now, probably. He's completed his 3rd lap time. It was a 1:15.3. That's 4 tenths quicker than anybody else has been able to go today. That looks like it's out of sight now for absolutely everybody. But fairly few of whom actually have still got laps here. We're seeing the end of the laps now. In fact, everyone inside the top 10 has finished now.
Yeah, I just see Mike Sachs. Well, he was one that needed a lap, but he put one in finally. Kevin Schultz has not either. Fonseca's got his first 2 down. This last one will be icing on the cake if he can go quicker for a 3rd time, and he does. A 16.7. It'll only jump him up 1 position, but it's 1 position he wouldn't have had.
Absolutely, and that might just save him a bit of time in the race. Peter Yerkes still not having... oh no, sorry, he has. I was thinking of Randy Levold, who is currently 16th place, who hasn't completed all of his laps, and Mike Sachs, who you just referenced a couple of moments ago. He has only on lap 2 at the moment, so he's got a little bit of a ways to go. Clearly deciding to wait out the opening part of the session, see what sort of benchmark is going to be put up by everybody else, and then try and beat it afterwards, which I don't think is too bad of an idea.
It does allow you an opportunity to do so. Chris Kost has just completed his final lap. He does not improve as we continue to watch Peter here. Mike Sachs. Oh, Mike Sachs was in pit lane for some reason, and he's coming back out now. So I wonder if he had a bit of an issue on the second lap and had to go and get a new car.
That is odd. Does that mean that at the start of the next lap, then, he's going to be able to do it a proper lap?
I'm not sure.
I don't even know, to be honest. It's 2.5 minutes to go. He's going to have the slight problem of not having enough time left, to be honest. 2.5 minutes remaining should mean 2 laps at full speed, but if you're only around the first part of the circuit, then you could be in trouble. Here he is running up towards turn 4 at the moment. Maybe he will just about have time, but I'm not sure how Harrison's going to deal with this, to be honest, because I've had different experiences in my time using it on whether it lets you do it again or not.
So here is our pole lap from Mike Foley. Ewan, talk us around. How do you get around this place quick?
Well, keep the speed high, basically, especially in qualifying, where you don't have to worry about shaving the life out of these tyres. You can absolutely lean on them. Left-hand side there through turn 2. Use the road on the outside, but don't go too wide because you will get an off track. Pulling it now back to the right-hand side to open up turn 3, which is one of the biggest stops on the circuit. Using all the road here because you don't need an exit. You just need to set yourself up for turn 4, the highest point on the circuit. Getting a late apex here for the run downhill, though it's not a very long run, so don't worry about it too much. Then slipping to the right-hand side to open up this corner, which is a very important one indeed. And in this Cup car, pretty difficult as well over Monroe Ridge to quite get it right through turn 6. Mark Foley certainly does, and that has given him clearly a good run down in towards the final corner, and this is where it can all unravel towards the end. Through turn 7, you want to be tight to the right-hand side. Then through the most part of turn 8, you want to be on the left. Then finally, here he goes out to the left, then get that apex on the right-hand side that you can barely see because of his own number, and now he will plunge up towards the line. That is a 1:15.3. It's a very high-speed circuit indeed. Not a circuit I'd imagine many of these drivers have too much experience on. I said that even before the pro drivers went around. I don't think they would either. So it's a very interesting proposition to have this circuit as the penultimate round of the season.
Yeah, hasn't spent a long time on iRacing, and as you had mentioned, it's not as commonly well known. It hasn't seen any major series in, well, literally decades. It's mostly club racing these days. That said, it did actually have a NASCAR Cup race many, many years ago, but that was in the 50s. So here's our starting order with Mark Foley, who we just watched, taking that pole lap over Aaron Nations, the two vying for a championship, as Ken Eskridge will be starting from third. He's another one in contention for that. Rex Girawalla will be P4. And then it has Ben Bulkley in the 5th position. Charlie Ferris starts 6th today, followed by Casey McDonald in the 7th spot. Marcel Eunice will be to his outside in 8th. Mehmet Karachai will be 9th. And then we've got the car of Patrick Gill rounding out the top 10. Nathan Abuhaka will be P11, and then Christopher Costas Ewan is our 12th place starter.
Yeah, 1,000ths further behind is Chad Kession in 13th place, with Jeffrey Gardner alongside him. Alberto Fonseca and Randy Lervold, one of the final drivers to complete his times at 15th and 16th. Then Sankerberg Son in 17th, but of Carbocchieri in 18th, the number 80. Then the final 5, Algebit Burrow is 19th ahead of Peter Yoxer, with Mike Saxton, who was the last driver to set his times, Andrew Long and Sean Bailey, the final drivers to set times. And we should add, Kevin Schultz didn't set a time at all. Whether he will get onto the grid for the race, though, is a mystery as of yet.
Well, keep an eye out for that. Sometimes drivers do have things that interrupt them. Now, we do have some unfortunate news for this race. As we have lost a prominent member in the PCA community, and that is George Makadakis. So to celebrate his life and in memory of him, this is Carl Boccieri actually running his livery tonight. He was a close friend of his. So our thoughts go out to the family of George and all of his loved ones that are missing him currently. And I'm sure many of his fellow sim racers. That's one thing that you quickly learn in this community, Ewan, is that, you know, this is more than just people that you're playing a game against online. You make a lot of very close friends in this community.
You certainly do, and hopefully Carl can have a great race tonight in memory of him as well. But yeah, you certainly do get that in these types of communities, especially with the Porsche Club of America sim racing community here. It starts off, of course, as just a bit of fun racing on the computer, but you do get to know these people very well indeed. They can become even closer friends than maybe people you know in real life. And so, yeah, Carl certainly will be racing with a heavy heart this evening, I would imagine, and looking to do well as well, and hopefully he does.
Crossing fingers he has a good result tonight. Oh, this is definitely fighting mistakes here in the warm-up and kind of sliding off to the side. It is tricky up on that top end of the lap that you were talking about, where it gets a lot more technical up there. So don't be surprised if we see some more drivers with issues like that. Now, before we get to the racing, we do want to talk about another of our sponsors, and that is Playa Vista Insurance Services. They're more than just an insurance firm. They're a full-service employee benefits consulting partner, delivering innovative solutions in wellness, compliance, and technology. With 25 years of trusted experience and a legacy spanning everything from nursing to hospital administration, they're dedicated to designing benefits that are as unique as your business. Contact them today to build a brighter, healthier future. So this is warm-up currently that we're watching. Qualifying has finished. All this is some extra practice before we get to the race itself, which will be in just about a minute and a half's time, where they'll line up behind the pace car, have a short rolling start, and then we're on our way for 60 minutes. So based on the first two that we've had so far, Ewan, what do you think are the big keys here to coming away with a good result?
Other than the obvious things of staying on the road and out of trouble, I would say pit strategy is going to be really key here. It is not impossible to overtake, as you might think by just looking at this circuit. I was really pleasantly surprised by the pro race this time 2 weeks ago, and so I think it's worth bearing that in mind, that it is possible to make overtakes. But these stops in pit lane are going to be very, very important indeed. And just staying on the road as well. I think maybe taking things a little bit more cautiously could help. And of course, tyres as well. You've mentioned this race is being run early in the morning, and we are at the start of December now as well. However, that doesn't mean that the tyres will be completely absolved from any ability to get too warm. So, got to be really careful of that. I think we saw that really in the pro race quite profoundly towards the end for Bryce Rodriguez, who at one stage was in championship winning position on the night. He fell away pretty quickly towards the end, though, as in hindsight, he probably fried his tyres.
No doubt. And I mean, there's a lot of corners where you can chew those up. You touched on it a little bit earlier where we could see drivers maybe holding back a little bit and then coming to the fore late on. But this is where we enter into the fixed setups. So we had open setups in the first two classes 2 weeks ago, and now everybody is pretty much on the same footing. But that just means that you can make that much more difference by preserving that rubber underneath you as the warm-up now finishes, so we're going to be lining up in a moment. One little tidbit about this place, I am very glad, Ewan, that it is still open, because apparently this is the oldest permanent purpose-built road course still running in the U.S.
Really? The oldest?
Yes, the oldest. There are others that predate it, but they were not permanent road courses. Sebring's a good example of that. It's been around longer, but it was an airfield. It wasn't a permanent road course. So, yeah, this is the first place built specifically for racing that is still running on the roadside, as you see them now lined up just before the sweeper, which has caught out many drivers in the pro class not long ago. And these drivers, it might not be as quick. We'll see if they've learned lessons from watching the previous two races.
You'd hope so. I think certainly early on, take things a little bit more carefully around the sweeper there, and it might be quite good advice, really. Especially for our nations. Just want to touch on the championship situation just before we set off. There is a very unlikely situation in which our nations clinches the title tonight. It's a remarkable set of circumstances that would have to happen. Now I've said it, it might well do, but it's very unlikely. What's more the focus, I think, is whether Kenneth Eskridge or Mark Foley can really make any inroads. They're starting either side of our nations, who's qualified second. They're both on the inside line, Foley and Eskridge. Can they gain points on him tonight? I think is the real game for them. They are 37 and 38 points behind him, respectively. There are numbers of others who are still mathematically involved, but those are the two really who you've got to be focusing on, and both will feel tonight is a must-gain points night as far as the Porsche Club America Sport Championship goes.
For reference, 100 points is a victory in this series. So, yes, it might sound like a huge chunk at 37 points behind, but it is possible to regain that. I think the big key there is that they kind of need to do what they need to do up at the front and then hope that Air Nations has a bad race either tonight or in 2 weeks' time when we go to Monza. But we'll see whether or not it is in their hands, because it's about to be in the hands of our pole sitter, Mark Foley. The pace car is in and releases them. Mark has to wait for the signal from the flag stand before he can go, and he'll have the inside down into Castrol Corner. Green flag is out. He does not get the greatest of starts, and Air Nations is already peeking around the outside as they come up to the left-hander. Question is, will he be able to really send it? And he does. He gets fully ahead, and here comes Rex Jarawala as well. He's almost taken second place.
Yeah, the outside line's had a fantastic start. Jarawala following through on Aaron Nations there. Both of them up positions early. Ken Eskridge has also gone backwards. The inside line there went nowhere. And that's one of the risks you run when you're the pole sitter and you wait to launch on the start. That can happen. You can get swallowed up very easily. Side by side, meanwhile, further behind Richard Marceau Yunes and Ben Buckley in for 6th place, just in behind Eskridge. They just about sorted out in time for turn 4.
Very much single file for the front of the field, but we get some nice battles here farther into the back as we got one car off to the side. That's Ankerberg Zona. Wow, great job collecting that and keeping that from becoming a big incident as he finds himself back on the tarmac once again. We come back a little bit up the field now and into the sweeper.
Yeah, very good job, because he looked like he was bobbling on the bank there on the right-hand side as well. Very uneven off the racetrack here. You can find yourself spinning around very easily indeed as we do come to the end of the opening lap. It's a dream start for the championship leader, Aaron Nasons, who's ahead of Rex Jariwala, then Mark Foley, Charlie Ferrer and Kenneth Eskridge, all in the top 5. That's, by the way, a top 5 made up of 5 of the top 6 in the championship. It's only Nathan Abuhaka who's absent from it, and he qualified outside the top 10, of course. Hasn't been able to make the progress maybe he'd hoped for early on as we go back in the pack. But for Mike Sachs, trying to gain a place early on, up into 20th. He's on the inside at turn 2, but doesn't look like he's quite going to manage it.
Eritza is going to hold him off. This is for P20 currently. He's going to try and come back up the inside, but now the track's going to switch directions. Watch out from behind. That is Andrew Long in the dark green machine, who is not going to attempt it. He gets a hit, though, and off goes the car of Mike Sachs and into the dirt. He falls to last place from that little hiccup.
Yeah, it's very easily done. Just braking too late at turn 3 and going off into the sand, I suppose. And if you do that, you're lucky not to end up in the bank on the outside line. So he did slow it down at least enough to avoid that. As we go back to the leaders, Aaron Nasons closed in on by Rex Jariwala into the final couple of corners. Look at the different lines they're taking through turn 7 and 8. It's a very difficult long right-hander that switches right back on itself right the way through. More than 180 degrees switched around, and it really has a lot of different lines. Jariwala just using that to get a bit of air on the nose, try and get a bit of turn in, but no positions gained as we look back further outside the top 10 here. This is where Abuhaka is in the pink. You can just see him in the background. He really needs to gain some positions from being back here.
And he's going to try and swing around the outside on this one. This is going to be difficult as they now come up out of Rabbit's Ear and into Budweiser balcony. Jeff Gardner is going to take that 12th place away from Abuhaka. Directly in front of him, he's still got Mehmet Karachai just in front. In fact, it's a little bit frantic in this part. You can see everybody's kind of showing themselves whenever they can to see if they can distract that car in front.
Yeah, you've got to do anything you can, because it could get more difficult as the race goes on. Now, I said earlier on that it is possible to overtake round here, and I was pleasantly surprised by the fact. However, it doesn't mean that it's easy, and certainly when things get more settled in, more single file, it will be a little bit more difficult. We're not even 4 minutes or indeed 3 laps into this race just yet, and so we are still in that stage where it is a little bit easier. Abuhaka running a little bit wide there through the final corner. He's way too far back to have a go on Jeffrey Gardner. Meanwhile, further up front, Casey McDonald and Ben Buckley go side by side for 7th. That's McDonald through.
Nice job by Casey McDonald. Also want to give a quick shout as an apology. That is not the Casey McDonald that was running in the Porsche Sprint Challenge, I found out. Casey actually reached out to me to let me know that it's just one guy with, or 2 guys with the same name, unfortunately. So apologies for that. Still, Casey represented himself well here as we come around Budweiser balcony. That's Eskridge in front in the silver and blue, with the yellow car of Marcel Yunus behind. Now coming down and through the Monroe Ridge corner you were talking about, so blind through there, and leads to such a fast portion of the racetrack.
Not sure how I feel about him having his lap timing up there, but anyway, that's it's his help. As we go through turns 7 and 8, it's almost a mini straight between these two corners. It really is remarkable. Then you really do have to get it turned in for 8, following through here very closely behind Eskridge. He's still running in 5th place after that pretty disastrous start that he and Mark Foley had on the inside line. I don't think Eskridge envisaged holding on from Marcel Yunus early on in this race, just 5.5 minutes in.
Not what I think he expected for sure, but the good news for Yunus is he's still up by 2. So he's at least looking decent. Randy Lervold, though, is not in a good spot, somewhere off into the weeds. It looks like he'll be able to find his way back on. I think that was outside of turn 1. Yeah. Back we come to the battle between Karachai and Costas, though.
Yeah, this is for 10th place at the moment, with Patrick Gill not too far ahead of them, but there is a bit of a gap ahead of that, so you can start to see the first shapings of a gap now inside the top 10. And it's, well, I don't say because of Mehmet Karaçay, but anyway, he's at the head of it. That's what happened to Lervo. Seemed to be going too quickly into turn one, frankly, and the rear came around.
We did see some of the pros also have that same issue. It seems like that banking is so inviting. Maybe you push it a little bit too hard thinking you've got that grip, and suddenly it is gone. Let's see how our leaders take it down into turn one as Aaron Nations continues to pull away. It's up to about 0.8 of a second over Rex Jarawala. This is farther behind as we look at Fonseca chasing on Albu Haka. Those two kind of in a bit of a fight of their own. Not sure that Alberto is going to be able to capitalize on this unless he gets a bit closer. And if those two start fighting, that might be his best chance. Because like you said, there's not much in the way of heavy braking zones.
No, not really around this circuit. And I think the biggest braking zone, or one of the biggest here at turn 3, certainly the point at which you reach slowest speeds, you're not really coming off the back of a long straight or anything to give you a good chance into one of these corners. So it can be difficult. You've got a better chance through one of these higher speed corners if you've got a decent run, which is possible, of course, because these cars don't have quite as much dirty air as some others. As it's side by side being well for what's this, 18th place. Andrew Long to get past Peter Yerkser here. Oh, and up ahead of them, that's Baroa gone off. Actually, Baroa, and they're both off trying to avoid him. Dear, oh dear, that was quite a moment. Baroa gets back going again though and gets off the racing line, more importantly.
It was great heads up on both their part, seeing that happen and just deciding to kind of eat the incident points. Remember that Clean Driver Award is something that everybody's going to be trying to vie for here as we swing down into the sweeper, I believe. But amongst these three, Andrew Long chasing on Peter Yerkser for what is now 17th place, having picked up another one. Excuse me, this is just behind him. That's Mike Sachs on Sean Bailey. Mike Sachs back moving after he had a little bit of an off earlier. He gets one back. That'll be P19 for him.
And it could be another position lost, I'm afraid, for Bailey. And Brewers ran again. He's not left enough time for his rear tyres to cool down, that's for sure. And he looks like he's gone back to pit lane. He certainly has. So 2 spins in 2 laps, I'm afraid, for Barua, and certainly the second one may have been caused by the first.
Real unfortunate to see, and it looks like he is going to call this one a day. Maybe just a bit too difficult. Can't blame him too much. This is a tough track to master, no doubt. Battle for third, Mark Foley. Actually, I'd almost say battle for second, if anything. Jarawala, who's kicking up a lot of dust coming off the exit of the sweeper, not that far ahead. He's got a whole train starting to form back there, and look at Eskridge on fair. He runs out of straightaway before he can make a serious attempt into Castrol.
Yeah. Sorry, I was getting very confused there. I thought there was a lap car involved. There's not. It's just a very close top 5. Top 5 covered by 2 seconds at the moment, by the way, from Aaron Nations, who was looking like he was extending a 1-second lead at one stage. That's gone away, and it's come back down to 8 again. Not sure whether that's Rex Jarawala having made a mistake or what, but the gap is back at 8-9 again now. So he's ahead of Mark Foley, then Charlie Farr and Ken Eskridge, but it's pretty single file here, and it has been for the first 10 minutes now, ever since the start. Interesting to see whether that remains, or whether Eskridge and Foley especially will see the real need to get themselves up the order in the next few moments and start to do that, or whether they are waiting out for the pit stops.
I'm going to check the track map, and yeah, it looks like they haven't caught the back of the field, so that's the other thing. It's not a very big field of cars at only 23 starters, now down to 22 still out on the track, but you could definitely run into a number of lapped cars. Here's the battle for P10. Patrick Gill ahead of Costas, ahead of Gardner. Patrick's still where he started, but Costas and Gardner are on the upswing, up 1 and 2 positions respectively. They're going to stay single file as well, coming up through Castrol. Here's where you were talking about off of Rabbits here. Double apex, long right-hander to lead into turn 3. Maybe looking for a good slingshot off of here?
Yeah, it's ideal if you can get that late apex and get that real run out of turn 2, but maybe hope that they go a bit wide as well, but you do need to be pretty close for a lunge. Because of these cars, it does mean it's a relatively long braking zone, even coming down from that kind of speed, so you can give it a go, but You are rather hoping that something goes wrong ahead sometimes, as certainly happened there for Kostis. He got very sideways out of turn number 3, and you can see Gardner and Abuhaka are noticeably closer now, coming over Monroe Ridge, but now Gardner just loses those couple of car lengths. Abuhaka gets a bit closer, and they remain single file. Nothing doing really so far in this group either for 10th place.
It does seem like a few drivers are feeling a little stuck. So will we see some different strategies play out? Maybe drivers trying to pit early. The window probably opening soon, but that's well too early for anybody to make a serious attempt at it. Maybe thinking about 30 minutes into this race. Mehmet Karachai sandwiched between McDonald and Bulkley. Battle for the 7th spot on the track. Hasn't changed since we last looked at it, but very good run from Mehmet coming off the corner, but a defensive move from McDonald will dissuade him.
He just had a look to the outside, but if he can just get McDonald to break a bit late, then maybe he's got a chance at 4, and that's what looked like happening for a moment, but no. Oh, look how deep they both run it into 4. That was a sign of two drivers pushing very hard in this battle now, even though it doesn't look like it. Sometimes it looks like they're pootling around, but they're certainly going for it here. And Karachai now looking to the outside of McDonald. He has been making progress, Karachai, in the last few moments, and it doesn't look like it's going to stop in 8th place.
Just seemed to lose some speed over Monroe Ridge, and that has cost him. Thankfully, he was far enough ahead from Bulkley that Ben was not able to pick up on that. Not unfortunate if you're Ben Bulkley, though, who goes a bit wide off of the final corner. Now, we saw a ton of that as well in the pros. Drivers pushing so hard off that late apex, and it has proven costly for some of them. In fact, I think we got a couple incident limit penalties, black flag drive-throughs that drivers had to serve in that race.
That was very close into turn 1 for Nathan Abuhaka, by the way. In the background, Czech Castellon's heading down the inside as well. What a disaster this is so far at Willow Springs for the driver. 5th place in the points, 58 behind Nara Nations going into today. That sounds like a lot, but as he said, 100 points for a win. And the fact that Aaron Nations, because his drop score is so low, you can actually gain 78 in one day on Aaron Nations if things go wrong enough. So he is still realistically in with a decent chance, but not if he finishes way down like he is at the moment. 15th place for him as things stand.
That's really not what he needs right now. And it's been interesting because that one finish is really the errant one from Aaron Nations. That was a 30th place that he came home. Everything else, he's been on the podium. As Mike Sachs has yet another problem. This time he does find the barrier up at Budweiser balcony. What about Mark Foley? Battle for P2. He lost that at the start. He is going to get it back finally about 15 minutes into this race.
And that's what I mean, turn 1, not a big braking zone, but it can be one of your better chances if you get a run off the sweeper. That's the beauty of these difficult long corners, is that you can still get runs off of them because there's very little dirty air in this Porsche Cup car. Mark Foley uses it very well indeed to get through. Ben Buckley was trying to use it as well. He went for a spin instead from, I think he was 9th at the time. He's certainly not anymore, way down outside the top 15.
It was a little scary. Some of those cars swinging very wide off the corner, and definitely had to dive across the track to make sure to avoid him. Thankfully, most of the smoke looks like it had cleared by that point, so they had a good visual of where that car was sitting. Back to the battle for P2. Foley's taking it. Jarawala now wants it back, but Mark, remember, started on the pole. I'm sure he is thinking forward already, trying to catch up to Aaron Nations, who hasn't been able to run away like he did initially. It's been cut back down to about 6 or 7 tenths of a second. So I'm not sure if this is what I mentioned earlier, that Aaron is trying to hold on to those tires, or does he not have the pace that we initially thought?
Oh, Kenny Veskridge down the inside at turn 1. That was quite late, and that's not going to come off, I don't think. Oh, no, it will. Wow. Charlie Furrer can't come back again. That was quite impressive. Eskridge really threw it there down the inside. Yeah, I think it's very difficult to tell early on here, to be honest. 15 minutes gone. I don't know if I'm going to read too much into the tyres, to be honest. I'll go back to the pro race we saw this time 2 weeks ago. Bryce Rodriguez looked fantastic at this stage, really fell away at the end of the race in about half an hour's time. So I think it is a bit too early to tell, but if Aaron Nasons is being caught, the signs are, I guess, likely that he is probably saving his tyres at the moment.
You see Foley and Jarawala second and third behind him. While we continue to watch this, we want to give another mention about Playa Vista Insurance Services. They're more than just an insurance firm. They're a full-service employee benefits consulting partner, delivering innovative solutions in wellness, compliance, and technology. With 25 years of trusted experience and a legacy spanning everything from nursing to hospital administration, they're dedicated to designing benefits that are as unique as your business. Contact them today to build a brighter, healthier future. Boy, things getting very tight now. It's cut down to about 0.3 of a second. Ever since Mark made that pass, he's been chewing up this distance and just spitting it out as we come back to Chad Casion getting overtaken by Nathan Albuhaka. So there's one down. Nathan just needs 2 more to get back to where he began.
Exactly, and then he's got to start moving forward even into the top 10. That's what a difficult afternoon it's turning out to be already for Nathan Albuhaka. Clearly not at one with this circuit as he has been at one with some of the others. Second place at Brands Hatch, the highlight of his season probably, and the only podium on his season as well so far to date. So yeah, not brilliant, I'm afraid, as Ben Buckley gets under the back of Andrew Long now. He's of course recovering after that spin out the final corner.
Long's been having an excellent race. It was the last of the qualifying times out there at 22nd and has gained 6 positions since the start. Ben might take one of those back here, as we have seen a number of drivers go off the circuit or have spins and have had to try and regain some of those spots. Will he be able to do it down into turn 1? It's rare that you see a pass here into the sweeper, so don't expect anything, although he may try to set himself up as they now look for the exit on this final apex right here.
Buckley was playing a very dangerous game on the outside there. He got really close to getting into the sand and getting pulled off the circuit completely, but he's been rewarded with a decent exit. The straight's just not quite long enough, and he can't get down the inside of Andrew Long. But this will be the story of Ben Buckley's race now, probably. He lost about 10 places in that spin, and so that's 10 drivers he will feel he's quicker than to go and overtake in the next 41 minutes.
So up and over Rabbits here, where the track just levels off before you're going to have another huge climb. It compresses once again in the left-hander. Ooh, that was a lot of curb to the inside there from Ben Bulkley. He'll get away with it. And then back down the hill they go. We kept calling this place old school. The curbs definitely are old school. Look at how much they jut up out of the dirt on the other side of them.
Yeah, and I think it's quite a good thing, to be honest, keeping you off the dirt, keeping you away from. I mean, there's no discussion about track limits here, are there? Because of the curb and the lack of tarmac runoff on the outside of the circuit, I think it's probably a good thing here. You can use some of them though, and do need to as well. If you really be brave, you can just click this one on the right-hand side there. Though you don't necessarily need to, but it does help. As meanwhile, Albuhaka getting down the inside there of Fonseca, I think that was, and it's all gone a bit wrong. Down the inside, Chad Casion tries to take his place back, can't quite do it.
Yeah, in fact, he was nose ahead on the inside. There was Nathan, and yet he seems to have overshot it by quite a bit. It should have been within his hands, but those mistakes could wind up costly. Ooh, Casion going for another one, just about making contact, bumper to bumper up the hill. He'll back out of that.
That was really close. Casion very close to turning Albuhaka, and he would probably have been the one deemed at fault if indeed the pink Porsche ahead had gone around. So he's pretty lucky that that didn't turn out worse. As we go on board with Albuhaka now, looking backwards here towards Chad Casion. And just the presence of Casion here is just distracting Albuhaka from his forward momentum that he's had in these last few laps and had, of course, into turn 1 on the previous lap, trying to overtake Alberto Fonseca.
For those not familiar with this series, they do have live stewards, and they highly stress clean racing. So yes, contact, if you knock somebody off the circuit, is almost certainly going to get you a penalty around here. It's rare that those cases do not, as like I said, they are really all about, from the very beginning, entry class all the way up to the pros, making sure that everybody is racing very clean and tidy. Up into turn one for Randy Lervold. That's Carl Boccieri just in front of him, with Sean Bailey at the lead of the trio as they head into Rabbits here. And a big look to the inside from Carl's. Not going to get anything at that point, but maybe could try to square off the exit. Let's see what he gets up the 3.
Tries to, I think, but nothing doing just for the moment. Sean Bailey will hang on, although goes a bit wide through turn 3. Boccieri not willing to quite use the exit there, and if he had done properly, he probably would have run over Sean Bailey, to be honest, and that wouldn't be any good. So he just backs off and looks for another opportunity in the next moments. But Bailey's wide again here. There's certainly a good chance. Oh, what's going on here? Joe Waller there was overtaken briefly by Eskridge, who immediately gives up 2 places in return.
Charlie Fair is going to get himself into 4th with that one. And I mean, that was extremely similar to what we saw from Abu Haka. He was on the inside and he was ahead by the time they turned in, and yet the car just did not want to seem to make the corner.
That was very weird. I mean, partly because of the point we joined. It was such a surprise that there was even a move in the first place that we weren't looking at. Look at that. Eskridge coming from a mile back, and he was never going to make the corner. Joey Waller realised that, so slowed down and just went back underneath him. Eskridge does a good job to only have 2 tyres in the dirt. That was really deep into the corner.
It really was. So, yeah, credit to the drivers. And it is interesting. Usually we do see cleaner races out of the pro race, which you would kind of expect, but it seems like they were the guinea pigs on this one, and we're seeing some of the slower classes start to learn their lessons from them. This has been a pretty good race so far in terms of drivers managing to keep it on the black stuff. As we watch out of the final corner, the battle between Gill and Costas. Costas does not get a good run, though, and so Patrick will be able to skitter away, at least for this lap. We're closing in on the halfway mark, so who is going to take a chance and maybe take a pit stop soon? They could probably get to around 15 to 12 minutes to go at a track like this.
They certainly did 2 weeks ago, so that's what we'll be looking at. Yeah, I think it's just really difficult for anyone in the leading 10 even at the moment, definitely leading 8, to come in at this stage and justify coming in. You'll be in a lot of traffic, to be honest, if you come in early. Now, we did see a few of those games a couple of weeks ago, pitting in early and trying to find little pockets of clear air. And in some of those other races, to be fair, especially the pro race, the field was already so spread out by this point that actually it didn't really matter whether you were coming in or not. You were going to be lapping or unlapping yourself from somebody anyway. So it kind of made more sense to come in. However, here, the back end of the field is still a long way from being lapped, and I think he'd be in real trouble. But Rex Jariwala disagrees. He's into pit lane with 35 minutes to go.
And that is one of our front runners. Very interesting. So he'll give up some track position. Now, for those that are not familiar with how this works out, yes, he's got an early stop. He could be off strategy and get some clear pace, but he is likely to run into slower cars and have to overtake them if they don't pit early as well. So it's a big risk, but it could allow him to jump those, as though it looks like the 878 is going to go for a ride through the dirt.
Jeffrey Gardner, who was trying to pass Patrick Gill for 9th at the time, has just spun around and gone to the back of the group. It was a pretty lively group, actually, for 9th place, as they all gained one from Rex Jariwala, who has made his stop, 14 seconds in the box. He's actually got a bit of clean air. He's got the pocket, and that's what I was talking about from a couple of weeks ago. You can find a pocket. However, how long's that going to last for? Because he's going to catch them quite quickly. His best lap is nearly half a second better than theirs. He'll probably be faster as well at this stage in the race, certainly as everyone's tyres are starting to wear away. So it's a good pocket to be in for now, but how long is it going to last? That would be my fear.
It's about 7 seconds up to Peter Yurtza, it looks like. So half second per lap. That's going to be about 14 laps that he's got to maybe have some clear. That's assuming that they're all running at the maximum, but it could be quicker than that. Meanwhile, coming down in turn one, some more side-by-side action. And it looks like Fonseca is going to take the outside of Albuhaca because that inside just isn't working. But for Alberto, he holds on to 10th.
Yep, he's done a good job so far in terms of hanging on. And many people, annoyingly for Nathan Albuhaca, have done a good job so far of holding on to their position from him. Now he's got a decent run out of turn two. He can look up the inside at 3, but he's not quite close enough to have a look, really. Well, he has a look, but he can't do anything. Fonseca runs a little bit wide just to give him half a car width in case he did anything rash down the inside. Certainly didn't. And Fonseca holds on to 10th place, back down the other side, back down the hill. So it's turning into a very difficult afternoon indeed for Nathan Albuhaca, who is still yet to break into the top 10.
Ooh. Fonseca looks slow off the corner. Here we go. This is about to get very interesting. No, it's not. Nathan thought about getting to the inside and the sweeper and decided that was a bad idea. And maybe that's the best decision at this stage in the race. He's still got opportunities. If it was last lap, maybe he would have stayed in it. Whoa! And there goes Fonseca off the course. And that's why, because he had a much easier pass here.
And even if he'd have kept it on the road, he would have been in trouble. Oh, look at your mirrors. Oh, Chad Casilion's coming through as well, and he wasn't quite expecting the second driver down the right-hand side. Like when two people are very close together on the highway and they try and overtake you at once. That's exactly what happened there. Fonseca wasn't quite looking in his mirrors, and he very nearly caused a really quite large accident at one of the highest speed parts of the circuit.
Credit to Casillion. Not only did he keep it together, I don't think he lifted when he went off the circuit because he didn't lose any speed. He finished the pass.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Yeah, I mean, braver than me. I'd have been on the brakes there, but anyway, that's why he's got a place there, and I certainly wouldn't have. He's up to 11th, Chad Casillion now, and that's a bad couple of corners, I'm afraid, for Fonseca, who's now back down to 12th place in the race, although he's still gained a few on where he started, of course, in 15th.
Yeah, so not the worst day in the world for Fonseca. Still has a net gain, but there's still plenty of race to go. And of course, we know that he's gained one from Gerald Walla having a pit stop. So I guess we can count that as a gain of 2 so far. More cars going way off. Oh, and how about this? Side by side for the lead. Up through Rabbits here. Nations versus Foley. And it's going to be last of the late breakers down into the left-hander. But that will be Nations for now. The flag has been planted in the sand as Mark clearly shows his intentions.
Interesting that Nations would have defended in towards turn 1 in that case because he was on the outside at turn 2. So he must have defended the inside at turn 1, which is pretty interesting. Normally, 80% of the time, I would say, you would stay on the outside, in my opinion, for turn 1. Hope that you can still maintain an overlap and then gain it back again through turn 2 because that's a full 180-degree switchback. But Nations didn't do that, and it turns out didn't need to either because he held on from Mark Foley pretty well there, and that's the first sort of battle between the two of them. He's come out on top. It's certainly the hardest one to defend from, in my opinion, the first battle, and now that he's got past that, he might find it a bit easier, but Mark Foley's attempts are certainly not going to go away.
Foley is on the offensive now, and he catches back up to him once again after the first failed attempt. So what did he learn from that one? This time, he's going to be behind through Rabbits here. So no side-by-side craziness between them here. Could he maybe sneak attack into turn 3? Or is he just going to sit back and wait for this race to come to him? Nations feeling the pressure as he has it off.
He certainly is feeling the pressure. He went wide into turn 3 last time, of course, because he was late on the brakes down the inside. He missed the apex at turn 3 again this lap, as he's clearly looking in the mirrors. He's missed the apex really quite far, a long way there at turn 4, despite the fact that that's the slowest corner on the circuit. And look at Foley getting in his mirrors now. Possibly the wrong idea, because he's missed his apex himself now at turn 5, and Nations has been let off the hook back down the hill again.
Mark's going to be kicking himself for that one. There were many opportunities that could have presented themselves in that situation, but the 8 will hold on to it. So the 316 continues to hover behind, and we are officially past halfway as well. Less than 30 minutes to go in this race. What's also interesting is since Rex Girawala has pitted, Ken Eskridge has started to kind of drop from this pair. It's now about 3.5 seconds up to the lead as we jump back down to Eunice and McDonald.
It's a huge gap compared to where it was, really. So, yeah, we'll have to see whether that comes back again, or whether it will remain the same. To be honest, Gill and Costas, meanwhile, go side by side. That's 8th place now for Patrick Gill. Goes a bit wide, but should hold on with the inside at turn 2. And there you can see Abahaka in the background, closing in the pink, as he has been very often, just lurking in this race. Rex Shariwala, by the way, still the only driver to have pitted so far, and that sort of window of clear air is starting to cave in on him now. 2.5 seconds up to the next driver in front of him, 1.5 seconds up to the driver after that, and as far as I can tell, he's not really been gaining time by pitting early either, so he could now find himself in a bit of trouble.
If you noticed a bit of smoke coming into turn 3, that was actually from this man, Ken Eskridge. Oh, goes off. Thankfully doesn't hit anything, but he's down to 7th place. That was a costly mistake. He had to sit and wait for an opening. That's going to move Charlie Ferrer now into 3rd place, and Ben Bulkley also having a bit of a problem from farther down in the field.
Yeah, that was his 2nd of the day, of course. He's now well outside the top 20, unfortunately, but that was a big one for Kenneth Eskridge. Really damaging for his championship, and no surprise to see him in now from 7th place. He's actually been really quite towards the back, so he might not fall into the same sort of traffic problems that some of the other leaders might. But yeah, he has made the sensible choice to pit there after a really damaging spin indeed. 2nd place in the championship coming in today, of course, 37 points behind. Can't really afford to lose points to Aaron Nason, certainly not at the rate he looks like he's going to at the moment.
He'll come out well behind Jarawala because of that spin. Otherwise, he would have been probably in a fight with him to try and hold on to that 3rd place. Now he's got some more work on his hands. Meanwhile, Eunice, who has been promoted to 4th by Ken's spin and then eventual pit stop, is doing a good job holding off Casey McDonald here. That's through the wing and down into the sweeper. I mean, boy, this camera really does show how quickly they enter into that turn, though.
Yeah, really leaning on the left-hand side tyres that take a battering around here, but it's how you go quickly. It's a full 180-degree switchback round there, and there's another one at turn 2. It really does damage the tyres. We go back on board with Eunice, seeing exactly what he can see here on board in towards turn 1. A rare opportunity to use the right-hand side tyres. And just watch how much lock he uses through here. Let's see how much he's really pushing through turn 2. I'd say that's quite a lot, to be honest. Pretty much 90 degrees lock all the way round. Can't imagine that's doing great things for his left-hand side tyres, really.
No, it really won't. And then he's going to give it even more of a pounding coming around the sweeper at the end of the lap. So 2 of the longest turns, both right-handers that just make you pay. But Eunice looking maybe at a podium if he can catch up to Fair, but he's got to make up 3 seconds, and that's quite a ways. Abahaka, Mr. Excitement in this race, is back on Costas, and actually Patrick Gill, I have to say. It's not that far up the road to 7th.
Yeah, of course, Gill did pass Costas fairly recently, and I'm just wondering whether that gap is going out, even though it is close. As you say, I wonder if it's going the wrong way for these two, as far as they're concerned, but we'll see, of course. Gill's got a long way to go until he can catch anybody else in this race, although wedged into that gap probably afterwards will be Ken Eskridge, who has found himself a bit of clean air as well, by the way, in the field. What it's shown to me, as Eunice and McDonald go into turn 1 pretty close together, what it's shown to me is that Rex Shariwala's strategy is starting to lose him a bit of time, and I still think he'll be 3rd, but you know, it's not losing him heaps of time by any means, and he's certainly not gaining heaps of time. I'd be very surprised if he comes out in the lead here. He is now stuck behind Peter Yerkser for 15th place.
So that's what we were worried about. That's the car he was chasing. He's going to hope that he can dispatch with him pretty quickly without losing too much time. My goodness, McDonald is laying it on thick, but Marcel, to his credit, he's not blinking. He's keeping him behind pretty well here.
Certainly is, and has been for most of the race, actually. He did initially stay with the leaders in 6th place, it was at the time. It was going quite well, but then backed off, not sure whether through speed or whether he decided to just back off, but he has started to be caught now by some other drivers. McDonald being the first of them, and Marek Karachai, of course, who's been moving forward in these last few moments as well. From 10th place when things initially settled down earlier on in the race, now up to 6th place as a result of many things, as McDonald now comes into pit lane. Bit of a lock-up on the way in for him.
Oh, he sped. He got a speeding penalty. You can see he's trying to stop, but unfortunately the horses have already bolted out and you can't shut the barn doors. So he's going to have to serve that one and take an extra long pit stop. So Casey McDonald no longer in that fight, I'm afraid.
Yep, it looks like it. These pit stops, by the way, about 15 seconds. That's going to add about, 2.5 times to his pit stop length, unfortunately. And there's not a lot he can do about it from there. As we were talking about it, though, 2 weeks ago, it's a difficult pit entry. You're coming off right at the highest speed point in the circuit, straight into the lane as Abuhaka goes straight down the inside of Christopher Costis here for 7th place. He can't quite do that and stays behind in 8th. But, yeah, you're taking a sharp left out of the fastest corner on the circuit, having to slow down immediately, and unfortunately for McDonald, he wasn't able to slow down quickly enough, and he may well be last actually after this.
I think you're right. I'm watching him kind of drop down the order on the tower there. Man, Nathan woke up today and said, I'm up for some action. He just has been nonstop out there. Whether or not it was a failed qualifying, if he messed up his lap or something, he's been getting his money's worth in today's race. He's up to 8th position. He's gained a few from the pit stops, but man, we've seen pass after pass from this man.
Yeah, we certainly have. And here's another down the inside for Nathan Abuhaka. Meanwhile, Mike Sachs comes off the pit lane right in front of him. Abuhaka may not have got through anyway, but he's certainly not going to now. Mike Sachs in that was coming out the pit lane in 21st place. He's 1 lap down. Not really his fault, to be honest, because it just put him right on the racing line, but it stopped Abuhaka from getting into 7th.
And he's still racing him here for some reason. Fonseca almost had a chance to sneak up the inside. This has not been going well for Nathan. And Mike Sachs is going to have to pull off to the side here soon. There's no blue flag rules like you see in Formula One. They're informational only, but he's not making friends out there. And we've had 2 more cars with speeding penalties, Boccieri and Long.
Oh, dear. So that is becoming a theme here. I don't know what 3 out of 22 is, but that's quite a high percentage, to be honest. That's well over 10%. So anyway, that's quite a high number of people speeding on pit lane, unfortunately. By the way, I don't generally approve of the F1 style blue flag rules, but I don't also approve really of lap drivers racing lead lap drivers, and that's I'm afraid what Mike Sachs is doing at the moment. I mean, as I say, I'm not really for people jumping right out of the way, but at the point where Abuhaka was side by side with Sachs, I would have thought Sachs should probably have given the place over by that point, but he really raced it into turn 2 and 3, and well, he's holding on so far to this track position.
It's one of those things where the frustration maybe getting to Abuhaka a little bit over driving the car off of Rabbit's Ear. It's one of those things, even if it's not explicitly against the rules, it's kind of a bad manners thing. You really are going to irritate people if you don't at least brake a little bit, like you said, when you're being lapped.
Yeah. Generally, I don't really, unwritten rules, I generally tend to think, well, they're not rules, so just forget about it. But yeah, I don't really think it's the sensible thing for Mike Sachs to be doing, particularly to wedge himself in the middle of this battle as he has done. But anyway, it probably feels, to be honest, after making that pit stop, that he should be a bit quicker because he's just made a stop compared to these guys who are still out on the racetrack yet to make theirs. And I don't know if that's always going to be true in this series, the way it works. But anyway, he's out the way now because they're all in for 6th place.
Yeah, that was probably the right decision. Even if they've got time left and fuel in the tank, might as well get out of that situation because clearly Mike's not going to play ball. So Costis is in, Abuhaka is in, and so is Fonseca. Who is going to be quickest in and out? We could get a driver making an overtake in here, though it is more difficult, of course, when you're pitting at the same time. And one by one, Gerald Walla gets positions, and it looks like Costas is first out.
Yeah, I'm not surprised he's out first. I'm surprised by the gap, though. That's quite large, as Hacker is trying to jump Fonseca in the, or stay ahead of him, I should say, in the pit stops, in the pit lane, and he's not done it. His day's going from bad to worse for Hacker.
Oh, that's Costas.
Get through.
Costas is off track. And Ben Bulkley is with him. Sorry, I know we couldn't quite fully see it on the screen there, but something happened as he exited pit lane. That's bizarre.
That's very bizarre. As Aaron Nations comes in from the lead, by the way, this is Marcel Younes coming in, and you can get a view as to what it's like in car with him. I don't know where he's set his fuel and whatever. I'm hoping he's already done it, because I can't see his fuel thingamajig anywhere on the screen. But anyway, he's pulled to a stop, just pulled up a little bit short initially so that he could accelerate in the boxes a bit quicker than having to reverse back in if you go a bit long. Aaron Nations 15.9 seconds in the box. He didn't speed, which is the main thing there.
Still, but I'm seeing others that had 12 and 13 seconds, so that's a bit long, almost 16 seconds, and he was racing Foley very closely. That could be costly. Mark is still out on track. Marcel returns to the circuit. I was able to find on my screen, by the way, that Costas seemed to have had contact coming through turn 1. Here it is here. I mean, sometimes that does happen. You're not expecting that car to still be there when you turn in.
I think the driver on the racetrack, I think it's Ben Bulkley, isn't it, should be taking a bit more care, to be honest, as to who's on the inside. You're the one who's coming through at full racing speed. You're the one who can see everything there, after all, when you're coming through at full speed there on the racetrack. You've got to be taking more care. You've got to, maybe he thought that he'd clear him just before turn 1, and I know it's not ideal to put someone right on the apex like that, but that's the way the pit exit works here. You've got to accommodate for that into turn 1, and I don't think Ben Bulkley really did that.
No, so it was a gamble that did not pay off. Karachai is in. Foley carries on. Ankerberg Zona also pits in. Nations is sitting in 4th, and he actually does have lap traffic in front of him right now, so that's going to be interesting to see if it also affects this. There's Ankerberg, and he hits his stall nicely. Looks like he's followed in by Jeff Gardner. Oh, but I think Jeff may have gotten a penalty.
Where's he going? Sorry. I thought because that pit thing was on our screen there, I thought they were at the end of pit lane. I thought Gardner was just driving through all the boxes. He couldn't find his own. It was just the camera angle. It's fine. He's found it.
Yeah, so he gets there eventually, and yeah, Gardner did get a speeding penalty, so now 4 cars that have. Foley, clearly being extra careful on this one, does not get the speeding penalty, but that may cost him if he wastes a little bit of time coming in. We wait with bated breath to see where Nations will return. Meanwhile, on screen, that's Lervold versus Karachai versus Eskridge.
Well, I think Mark Foley's got time to burn, to be honest. Aaron Nations, as he pointed out, has got the longest stop inside the top 14. So I'm not sure what took him so long, but Mark Foley does have a bit of time to play with it. And even though he was second before,
and he's off.
But it was favourite.
Sorry, Nations just went off as well. He was trying to lap that car ahead of him, and more time has been given away. Foley is out with a clear bit of track. This has fallen in the lap of the 316 after it got snatched away right at the start.
Yeah, so it's pretty clear then that Foley would have been out in front even with Nations staying on the road in that situation. Now all Nations has done is really invited a load of pressure on himself, because Rex Jariwala and Charlie Ferret, who are both also outside championship contenders, by the way, are both very hungry to get through on him here, and that's a lot of pressure in these final 15 minutes. This is what happened. It's lap cars again. I don't think the lap driver's doing anything particularly wrong. Aaron Nations just pulling to the outside to try and go right round him, but just misjudged it slightly.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think anything was done wrong by the lapped car, but I imagine it distracted him from what it looked like from the onboard and just went a little bit too wide. Well, that is good news if you're Rex Jariwala, because look how close he is to Aaron Nations now. He probably didn't think he had a potential second place on the cards, but it's come right back to him.
Yeah, I think a lot of the discussion amongst the drivers might well be about that early stop for Joe Willow, certainly amongst the front drivers, whether it made a difference or not. I personally don't actually think he's in any different position than he would have been if he'd have stayed out with the others. He got a bit more clean air, he got a bit of an undercut on the others, but actually he got a decent amount of time on his own. Then just towards the end, he got stalled by a bit of traffic as everybody started to pit and everybody started to obviously get stretched out from the leader. So I'm not convinced it really made much of a difference. I think even in a world where he stayed out, he would be in this battle for second right now with Aaron Nations and Charlie Ferrer. That's about where he was before anyway.
Before this heats up too much, I want to give another mention of Playa Vista Insurance Services. They're more than just an insurance firm. They're a full-service employee benefits consulting partner delivering innovative solutions in wellness, compliance, and technology. With 25 years of trusted experience and a legacy spanning everything from nursing to hospital administration, they're dedicated to designing benefits that are as unique as your business. Contact them today to build a brighter, healthier future. On board right now with Charlie Ferrer. He's also in the hunt here for this second place. I'm sure he would love a podium. He's going to have to at least pass Rex, if not potentially Aaron, if he wants to spray that champagne off of the final apex and down the main straight they go, very much using up every inch of the track.
That was very well done by Joe Willow, using all of the road, but Nations didn't leave much of it on the table either there. That was pretty good driving from the both of them there out of the final corner. By the way, just to let you know what they're stacked up against, by the way, Joe Willow and Ferrer, if they were to both get through, it would be the only time Nations has finished off the podium, other than Summit Point, of course, where he had a bit of a disaster of a race, and as you said earlier, it finished 30th. He finished so low down, actually, he's not even able to finish there today because of the numbers compared to back then. So that's what they're dealing with here. I think that for them both to get through would be quite an extraordinary turn of events, but Joe Willow does look pretty quick and might be able to get through into second himself. We'll see if he's got enough time in 12 minutes here.
I believe at worst he'll have 21st today, and I'm double checking. That is worth 40 points. So yeah, I mean almost double of what his drop points are. But that would mean that he has to count those 40 points, which means that it'll be a 60-point swing, which actually would put Foley into the championship lead, if I'm not mistaken.
He's currently 38 behind, so I believe so. It's one of the more interesting championships, actually. I think the Sport Championship, because of that, because the leader has such a bad drop, and you don't often see that. Actually, we certainly don't have that in the pros that we had 2 weeks ago, as we were talking about earlier. As this, meanwhile, is Eskridge versus Marcel Yuns, who's just up ahead in 5th place. Eskridge trying to get back into the top 5 again. This is really damage limitation, but there is going to be damage, and he may well be slipping away in this championship now, needing a bit of a miracle in Monza.
I agree. He needs to do something here in these final stages, but has only got 11 minutes to try and do it. By the way, just a bit of housekeeping, Ben Bulkley did get a penalty for that contact down into turn 1 with Costas, so I believe he has since served that one. Ooh, that's very, very wide from Eunice. This opens it up for Ken Eskridge, side by side over Monroe Ridge. That's brave stuff, but now he's on the wrong side of the track, coming down to the sweeper. Who is going to give up on this one? They'll hold wheel to wheel. We ride on board with Eunice, who hugs the inside line, and he'll come out ahead.
Yes, it's a great view as to how you battle side by side, by the way, in sim as it's not over. Oh, what a run! What a great run from Eskridge, and Yuns being on the apex there, as he should be, of course, basically stalling it. Now you can see, oh, they're rubbing on the straight now. Inside line for Marcel Yuns, and again he takes the place. He brakes really late, putting Eskridge off going around the outside. He's instead going to go for the cutback and a run around the outside at turn 2, but surely that's not going to work. It would be spectacular if it does, but I can't see it. He's giving it a very good go. Can he hold it there? If he can just stay there, it'll be all right. Oh, Oh, he's just been shoved out. What a great battle this is for 5th place.
Twice the NASA car tried orbiting around the outside. Twice it did not work. He's going to have to try and do something a little bit different, and he almost gets to the inside of Budweiser balcony. But again, Marcel Yunus holds him back. Ken clearly has the speed. I'm kind of surprised that both times it didn't work. It seemed like he had a good run each time.
I think, especially, I think he should have made more run of it, more of his run, I should say, in towards turn 1. The corner he had through the sweeper last time, this time last lap, was extraordinary. He had a really great run out of there, and I just think he could have used more of it. He was close, backing off. Oh, and there you go. Well, after all that hard-fought battling, Eskridge has been giving it on a plate, and Mehmet Karaçay looks like he's going to get given 6th place as well.
Yunus going to be really upset with himself over that one. He falls to P7. Karaçay now up to 6, as you mentioned, and Eskridge back into the top 5. There's at least a little bit of damage limitation. I do love these drivers that give the feed of the, whoa, and he gets it right back because Karaçay makes the mistake now, tries to carry the speed. Is he going to be able to hold on somehow? Wow, okay, so we're trading positions, what, 3 times in a lap here? This is pretty wild.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on anymore, to be honest, for this battle for 5th place. It's got balmy, really. Eskridge looks like he's getting away, but I'm not going to speak too soon on that one just for the moment. Mehmet Karaçay certainly looked like he had 6th place sewn up until he went very wide at turn 2, seemingly under no pressure at all. Now he certainly is going to be under some pressure from Marcel Yunus for the rest of this race, maybe, the rest of the 8.5 minutes. But yeah, it is great to get an onboard view like this. You can see exactly what the driver is looking at in terms of whether they're focusing forward or whether they're looking at that data on the top left of our screen here. How they battle as well, I think, is really interesting to view here, because we don't often get to see that on board. We certainly don't get to see it on board when we don't have a VR camera like this one. It really puts into perspective how difficult it is to battle with someone else, as Rex a while ago through.
Aaron Nations now down to P3. Rex somehow making this one up. Carries a lot of speed out of Rabbits here. He'll just barely keep it into that 2nd place. What about Charlie Ferrer? Can he demote Aaron Nations one more as well? If he gets off the podium, like you already mentioned, it'll be the first time, but it'll still be 86 points, which isn't too bad. It's only a 14-point loss from a win.
It's not too bad, no, but he wouldn't like to concede it. And just to put an extra layer of interest onto this one, by the way, Charlie Ferrer needs to finish ahead of Aaron Nations to keep his own mathematical chance of winning this title alive. He comes into the day 77 points behind, with a possible gain of 78 per day. Now, he can't really afford to finish behind him, to be honest, because while he does have a mathematical chance going in, he doesn't at the moment. So losing these 4 points as he would be is not something he can really afford. He needs to get this podium, and he moves to the outside to try and get it.
Doesn't manage the over-under on that one. Nations will hold him off. They'll swing back through Rabbits here. This is a long uphill corner as well. It might not look like there's much around at this track, and it's a whole lot of flat, but it is jutted right up against this sort of mountain. I'm not sure if you consider it a mountain, but you can see there's a steep climb. And then, of course, it peaks right about here and then comes right back down as a big peak from Charlie Ferrer does not produce anything quite yet. But it's hard to miss that bright green car, so surely Aaron knows he's back there.
They're kind of mountains, aren't they, really, around here? I know California can be quite mountainous, so, I'll go with it. It is very steep, whether it's a mountain or not.
Yeah.
It's very steep in places around here, especially on the plunge downhill, I find. Especially towards turn 5, it's really steeply downhill actually, and it's sort of trying to not let the car run away from you almost as you're braking for that left-hander.
And it's unsettled many a driver and sent them off into the grass, which they've actually dealt with that, I'd say, fairly well. We've only seen, I think, 1 or 2 in that left-hander itself. It's usually cars going off in the previous corner from what we've witnessed, and there's only 5 minutes left to go, and we do still have those 21 drivers on track. Bulkley and Barua are the only 2 that have retired from this race. Sad thing for Carlo Boccieri is his livery did not give him more speed today. Apparently, he's the last one running and about 2 laps down, so he's had a bit of an issue himself. We know one of those was the penalty that he had speeding into pit lane. Down into turn 1, Ankerberg Zona versus Chad Casion. This is for the last spot in the top 10.
Yeah, Casion trying to hang on, and Ankerberg Zona looking to get his 7th position gained and get into the top 10. He is the biggest mover forward on the day so far, tied with Alberto Fonseca. If he can get up this one more place, then he will get that on his own. So he'll be looking for this place, but he's very much running out of time now. 4.5 minutes remaining in this race. Mark Foley's just got over the line now. What does that mean? 4 laps to go, I suppose, at the line.
Something around that. He's got 5 seconds of gap back to Rex Girawala. And again, it's wild to see how much this race has swung in his favor after he just did not get that race going off the start-finish line. Fell all the way to 3rd, and it looked like maybe he was kind of stuck there. But as we come into the corner for Aaron Nations, that's a lapped car he's going by. That's Carl Boccieri, actually, that he's able to get by. Well, this works out very good for Nations. Look at how much this is holding up Charlie Ferrer. He loses gobs of time.
Yeah, that might be that now. I think Boccieri was trying to do the right thing and stay out of the way as best he could, but once you find yourself on sort of one side of the circuit, it's very difficult to cross the circuit it's a bit like crossing the road, to be honest. You can't quite do it when there's a group coming through like this. And so Aaron Nations got through in a much less easy place, able to get through as well. But I think that gap now should seal another podium for Aaron Nations if indeed he keeps it on the road in these final few laps. There's every reason to suggest that he will as well. So that's a very good position for him to hang on to. Just 10 points lost on the day if indeed that is the case. So we're going with a 28-point lead as things stand, but there are still 3 minutes to go.
One thing that racing has taught me is that there is no fat lady singing until that checkered flag falls. So I'm not going to count anything until this one is over. Nations has to bring it home here from Still. And we've seen how difficult this track can be. Did we just have a problem for Chad Casion? Because I think he took a toe to pit lane for some reason.
That would be bizarre. He was in that battle for 10th place we were watching with Ankerberg Son, and yeah, he has dropped way down. So, don't know what would have happened there, to be honest. As we've said before, it's pretty difficult to hit anything, to be honest, around here. So, be very interesting to see what happened to him. Oh, dear.
Hope that's not our latest. Oh, Randy Lervold, who's also had an off a little bit earlier, was out on that final corner. Okay, this is bizarre. And he's coming in. Does he have a black flag for some reason? I don't see one next to his name, so I'm not sure why he's pitting. So let's see if he hit something maybe. Oh, yeah, he did. Whoa.
We've seen it. We've seen someone hit a wall. Can you believe it? I certainly can't. That was quite big contact, and not a brilliant rejoin, but no one was around to see it, so it's fine. And he will come into pit lane to get a pretty short repair, and then Mike Sexton in the background just follows him off the road, it looks like.
A little bit of target fixation. I suppose something about a blind squirrel there with hitting that wall, so somebody's finally done it. It just unfortunately was a person that probably didn't want to in this situation. As we check back in, I believe with the 614. Trying to make out. Oh no, excuse me. This is Mark Foley that we're looking at. So this is our leader once again up at the front. Still at about 5 seconds, and he's about to take the white flag for the 1 to go signal. That's a lapped car behind him, Andrew Long, who again, even though he's been lapped, he's up 7 spots. Only Peter Yurtza and Ankerberg Zona have repeated that feat in this race. So it's been a great climb from the 24.
And he's made up a couple of those places in the last few moments, by the way, with Saxon going wide and Lervo going off as well, and Casey on dropping behind him. So a real rise through the field right at the very end there for him. And now we've got 3 drivers on +7 on the day. But Mark Foley is on the final lap now. The white flag was waving as he went past the start-finish line that time round. And I think it would be easy to make a lot of Aaron Nason's going wide through that final corner as he came out of the pit lane, Mark Foley. However, I think the pit strategy for Foley was going to be enough regardless. His pit stop, let's not forget, was 2.7 seconds quicker than Aaron Nathan's. I think that's what gave him the advantage and the track position here. Maybe it's inflated his gap a bit, that mistake from Nations, but the strategy is what got him into the lead. A very important win indeed for Mark Foley as far as this championship goes in the penultimate round of the Sport Push Club America Championship.
One last corner to go for Mark Foley as he approaches that final late apex. He doesn't need to maximize this one. He's got plenty of room. He knows it. And to the line, he does everything he needs to do. Mark Foley takes maximum points and victory here today in California. Behind him, Rex Cherawala will be P2. Aaron Nations continues his impressive run of podiums here today and minimizes the damage.
Yeah, good job from Nations in the end. Came under a lot of pressure at times in that race, but manages to finish on the podium regardless. Casey McDonald here has got a chance to gain a position on the very last lap, by the way. These two are the last drivers on the lead lap, Peter Yerxa and Casey McDonald. And that speeding penalty, of course, McDonald is what's put him back here. He's got a good run through 5 and 6. Maybe there's a chance for a last corner move.
He's thinking about it. We said this is the time that you got to pull that card and try and hang side by side. He's going to be able to get to that inside line, and Yerxa cannot manage to hold him back. Casey McDonald gets through with a corner left to go. All he needs is a smooth exit. Peter could still outpull him down to the line, but no, it's not going to work. Casey McDonald takes P13 with an excellent last lap pass.
Yeah, that's very well done indeed, and decent recovery as well. But he'll be ruining that pit lane entry, I think. At the I know it's easy to do this and not, it doesn't quite work like this in practice. But if you take those 40 seconds away, he would have been around about that battle for 6th place with Marcel Younes, who was battling with a lot of drivers throughout the day. So that's the kind of race that McDonald was looking at least though he got that position on the very last lap for 13th.
All right. Now, before we get to the results, a reminder, Charlie Mobile is sponsoring the Series 12 Clean Driver Award. Charlie Mobile is providing the winner with an Apple iPhone 16 and a year of self-service. Thank you, Charlie Mobile, for your sponsorship. Mark Foley not only was our winner, but took the fastest lap on lap 26, which is well into this race. Kind of impressive out of him. Rex Cherawala came home in P2. Aaron Nations still gets himself some champagne with 3rd and will lead the championship after this. Charlie Fair was 4th with Eskridge, at least getting a top 5, but that does not do his hopes of a title any good. Marcel Younes with an exciting race in 6th. Mehmet Karachai 7th, and Nathan Malbuhaka, Mr. Excitement, if anything, coming home in P8. Alberto Fonseca 9th, and then the top 10 Ewan rounded out, of course, by Ankerberg Zona.
Chris Costis just misses out by 3 seconds on that top 10, but Patrick Gill just behind him. Casey McDonald with that late pass. Peter Yerxa gets up into 13th place. 1 lap down. First of those lap down was Andrew Long ahead of Mike Sexton. Jeffrey Gardner, Sean Bailey, Randy Lervold and Chad Casion round out the top 20, all of whom 1 lap down. Carl Boccieri got to the end, 2 down, with Ben Buckley, Avit Barua and Kevin Schultz not making the start.
Well, that, of course, will bring us to our 2nd place finisher, it looks like. I think we've got Rex Cherawala ready to chat with us. Or do we want to start with Mark Foley? Because it looks like he actually just showed up as well. Let's start with Mark Foley instead, since he took the victory here today. Mark, you didn't lead the first half of the race. Were you not panicking? Because we were kind of surprised that you lost the lead and didn't do much to take it back, but then it all kind of came back around to you in the end.
No, I thought I had a decent pace. I was following Aaron there, and I just felt comfortable following, and he started making a few mistakes, and then I capitalized, I think, through the pits, made a good pit stop, and took the lead, and finished up strong.
You kind of needed Aaron Nations to have a bad day. He still comes home in third, so I believe he'll lead the championship going into the final round at Monza. Does this put you in a position where you feel like you've got a realistic shot at stealing it away from him, or do you feel like he's been too fast this season?
He's been extremely fast and consistent. I think my focus is just consistent, clean laps, and we'll see how it shakes out.
How are you at Monza, by the way? Is that a track that you tend to favor?
It's one I haven't raced a whole lot.
Oh, okay. Makes it interesting. Well, you impressed today. Congratulations on the win.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks Playa Vista for sponsoring this, and shout out to Blake for getting me up to speed over at Full Speed Sim Coaching.
Certainly did a great job getting Mark up to speed as he takes the win today ahead of Rex Jarawala by about 5 seconds. I do believe that Ewan has caught up with him.
Yeah, welcome in, Rex. Good to have you with us, and congratulations on second in the end. Let's go to the end of the race. First of all, you were battling away with Aaron Nations and I guess as well with Charlie Ferrer as well. Just tell us about that run after the pit stops, first of all, when you were finally up with the leaders again, and you were able to get into second place.
Yeah, that was a tough run. I think luckily I was able to keep the car out of the sand, and Aaron was tough to stay behind. I was just trying to keep the pressure on and just waiting for a mistake, and he wasn't making one for quite a while, but small little turn one, he went a little wide. I was able to just get through and hold him off for the rest of the race.
Now tell us a bit about your thinking for the pit strategy. First of all, your thinking, but second of all, whether you think it made any difference or not, because I personally think you would have finished second regardless, but tell us what you think.
So I did want to pit a little bit earlier because I was behind the leader for quite a bit, and my fronts I was thinking was going to get worn down a little bit more than I'd like toward the end of the race. So just to keep a consistent strategy, I just decided to pit early, undercut. May or may not have worked depending on where traffic was for the rest of the guys. But I was able to keep pace, and then put me back in fighting position at the end of the race.
Well, I can tell you just a few points away from third in the championship now. You've moved on up in that regard. Congratulations on finishing second tonight at Willow Springs, and thanks for coming to chat to us as well.
Thanks, you, and thanks, Joe.
Thanks very much. Rex Jarawala there, finishing in second place in the race tonight, and Aaron Nations is here as well.
Indeed, another podium. In fact, Aaron, it seems podiums are your strength. The only one that you didn't finish there was Summit Point, and unfortunately, that is sort of Damocles hanging over you from what we've seen. Are you regretting that little strange incident there, or is it something where you feel pretty confident because of your consistency otherwise?
Summit Point, yeah, that one, I just like to forget about that one. I had good pace, like it should have been a good race, but I just kept making too many mistakes. But overall, I think I've found some pretty good consistency. So I'm feeling pretty good about the last race.
It has been impressive, and you came home with another podium here today where it seemed like at first you were in a decent spot, but then it started to go away a little bit, and you had one of the slowest pit stops amongst the top runners. Was that just the iRacing random pit stop times, or did something happen?
I'm not really sure what happened with the pit stop. Those are definitely something I need to work on. I'm just kind of winging it right now. That'll be something I focus on next season, but otherwise I can't explain why it was so slow.
You said you feel pretty confident going into the last round, and Mark just mentioned that he doesn't have much experience at Monza. What about you? Is that a track you've raced a lot?
I've run it one or two times, but yeah, I don't have a whole lot of experience with it.
All right, so it's going to be a bit of a mystery heading in there to see who has the upper hand. Congratulations. You're heading to the last round with a bit of a points lead, so we look forward to talking to you when we get to Italy.
All right, I appreciate it. I'd like to thank you guys, the sponsors, Nikki Chan, and just everybody for the clean race.
That was your third place finisher, Aaron Nations, who could be on the verge of taking home a title when we see him in 2 weeks' time. Well, before then, make sure and join us tomorrow night, December 5th, because the challenge class is going to wrap up the racing here at Willow Springs. A big thank you, of course, goes to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, as well as to our team tonight, Ewan and Hugo. Thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast of PCA Sim Racing. I'm Joe Peak, and until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.